when you look at this from a fitness perspective, if someone comes to me and they want to lose some body fat, they want to build some muscle, it's not always as simple as fix your diet and train really hard.
Hmm.
Because if your hormones aren't where they need to be, I can't fix that. There's nothing I can do that's going to fix your hormones. There's no, and this is where I kind of get on my soapbox about the supplement industry. There's so much BS when it comes to supplements of like, oh, this is a testosterone booster. It's all crap.
You are listening to The Dr. Haley Show, the podcast dedicated to helping you optimize your health. Each episode, there will be an interview or a message to help you discover better health. We will be featuring health radicals on the show to bring new ideas to the table, as well as doubling down on key fundamentals to support you living your best life. Your host is no other than the founder of Haley Nutrition, Dr. Michael Haley.
This is the Dr. Haley Show podcast. I'm Dr. Michael Haley, the show host, and today's guest is bodybuilder and fitness guru, Andrew Stephen Rose. His specialty is men's health through nutrition, training, hormone optimization, and overall lifestyle changes. He believes you have to take care of yourself so that you can help others who can't draw from an empty bucket. Andrew, thank you for joining me today. I checked out some of your content, and one of the things I came across on YouTube was you posing in a bodybuilding competition, looking awesome. My goodness, you are in shape.
Thank you.
Yeah, so are you still pursuing that?
So I started competing in bodybuilding back in 2014, and I took probably about a 6-year hiatus because I was, at the time I lived in Pittsburgh. I had just opened a gym there, and it just, it kind of lost its luster for me. And I moved to Charleston, South Carolina, maybe 10 years ago this December. And I was introduced to powerlifting. So I powerlifted for about 6 years, and I don't know what happened. I kind of got the bug, and I was like, I haven't competed in a really long time. I kind of want to know what this all looks like. So that was back in 2021. I came out of retirement, so to speak. And my intention was to do one show. I just wanted to do one show and then call it. Well, one thing led to another. I won the whole show. The promoter came up to me and said, hey, there's a national show where you can qualify for your pro card so you can become a professional bodybuilder in 2 weeks. And it just so happened that that show is in Pittsburgh. So I got to go back home. So I did that show, did pretty well there, didn't win. And I did it the next 2 years. And then I took a couple years off, and I have a business here. I own a gym here in Charleston, South Carolina. So I had bought this in 2022. Yeah, early 2022. Bought the gym here. Put a lot of time and effort into my coaching business as well. And that's, my son's 8 now, so it's one of those things where life is kind of picking up outside of the gym, so to speak. So I said, you know what? Let's make this the final run. And so I've actually got a show, 2 shows lined up 5 weeks from now. So August 23rd is the first one that's here in town. And then I fly back to Pittsburgh to compete on the 28th of August. And the goal is to win my pro card, and that's it. So now I guess this is the first time I'm saying this publicly. I've said it to some people who are, close to me, but if I don't win, I'm just going to call it. Be done. I'll still bodybuild, but I won't compete. I'll still train the way I train and eat the way I train, but
without burning the bridge, though, just in case. No, don't burn that bridge. You never know. You never know.
Well, what
if your son says, "Come on, Dad, compete next to me on the stage"?
And that's there's some outliers there that could get me to step back on stage for sure. And then one of the things is, to become a professional in any sport, it takes a certain amount of effort and a certain amount of sacrifice and time and talent, obviously. But, my ultimate goal back in 2014 was to compete as a professional. So having that qualification and then not competing as a pro kind of leaves something unanswered. So when I come back, and I'm going to say this here, and I want, whoever's listening to this podcast, I would like them to listen to how I say this. When I come back from Pittsburgh with my pro card, because I've already won it in my mind, then I have the decision of, let's find a show that I can compete and maybe win some money. So that's where I'm at with it now. I'm in the thick of it. I was just talking with one of my members in the gym, who's getting into bodybuilding herself, and she was asking how things are going. And I'm 5 weeks out, so we're in the dark part where basic everyday stuff becomes really difficult. So even today, I'm scheduled for a podcast, made sure that it was later in the day. But this morning, it was rough this morning, to be honest. It took me until about 2 hours ago to wake up, and I get up at 4 a.m. So it's been a hell of a day. So it's, bodybuilding isn't something, it's a very individual sport, but at the same time, anybody that's around you, whether it's a husband, a wife, a partner, even close friends and family, like, they have a huge role in it too. We were talking about that in the gym, of the support crew that you need around you. Is like, people circle around you. That to me is such an important part, because if I didn't have people in my corner, it'd be a really dark journey, I should say, and it would be really hard to do without support.
I absolutely, completely agree with you. I get it. How much of it is diet and how much of it is training?
Well, I've said this for a long time, even if outside of bodybuilding, right? So, but, since we're specifically talking about bodybuilding, I would say 85 to 90% of it is diet. Now, training is always a constant, but your training does adapt over time. I'm having a little bit of a powerlifting background. I love to lift heavy. So
I would imagine those portions would probably change if it was powerlifting instead of bodybuilding.
Right. Did you say portions?
Well, for instance, if bodybuilding is, 90% diet, powerlifting might be 90% training.
Yes and no. It really, with powerlifting, and here's what I love about powerlifting, is that when I remember the first time I went to a powerlifting meet, again, coming from bodybuilding, when you see competitors at a competition, where you're at, what the competitors look like. What I loved about powerlifting from the moment I started is every different body type, every body shape, height, weight, it's all there. Age ranges. And it's a sport that realistically anybody can do, and do pretty well. Now, your nutrition, whenever it comes to training, nutrition is always going to be the biggest component. It's probably, I wouldn't say it's, in direct opposition, going from bodybuilding to powerlifting, but it is a little bit toward the middle, right? Like maybe 60-40, maybe even close to 50-50. Diet is not as important. You can eat a lot of food and the first powerlifting competition I went to, it was in Columbia, South Carolina. We drove up the night before, and you go through your weigh-in, and they check all your gear, and then we all went to dinner and ate pizza and drank beer. So to me, that was like, wait, this sport's awesome. The night before a competition, I'm having a pepperoni pizza and drinking a couple of beers with my friends.
Yeah.
And, in that sense, it's a little more laid back when it comes to nutrition.
Pounding calories rather than nutrients.
Correct. And there's that adage of, mass moves mass, right? So, the more food you can eat, the bigger you can get. It's not about how you look, I should say. So I joke about bodybuilding, rather. It's not about how much you lift. It's about how much you look like you can lift. Because people think like, wow, you must be really strong. As I get closer and closer, and I will always say this, bodybuilding is not a healthy sport. There is nothing healthy about it. The act of building muscle, the act of training and eating well, and adding that into your life, that part is healthy. But when you get to the competition side of it, there's not much that's healthy about it, especially at the very end. It's, you know, you're getting down to single digit body fat to where it hurts to walk because there's no fat in the bottoms of your feet anymore.
Mm,
It hurts to sit because there's no fat in your glutes anymore. It's,
interesting.
it's a very, and I think more and more people are talking about it openly for a great deal of time. Even when I started, it was that there's certain topics when it came to bodybuilding that were taboo. We didn't talk about it. You talked about it like privately. I talk about it openly, especially with.
I like that.
Well,
That's why
I
you're
like to
actually
talk.
on this show right now.
Perfect. I love that. I refer to them as the kids. The younger guys and girls in the gym. It's, you know, I didn't have, and I've always said this. I wish I would have had this gym when I was a teenager. This place didn't exist. So these kids coming in that are training now, that are learning, and they love to work out, they love to train. And so when they ask questions, which is difficult sometimes for me, if I'm in the middle of my own training session, I've got kids coming up asking me questions about this, that, and the other thing. And I'm always going to put down my headphones and answer the question because, I want that environment here. I try to teach them as much about the reality of it as I can, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think it's important, in any sport, not just bodybuilding, but sports that require extremes.
Mhm.
Um, let's talk about the truth. And it's and I'm learning this year in a way that I never have. This sport has a cost, and it's not financial. It's I've got I said my son is 8, and he's going through some stuff as an 8-year-old, and it's one of those things. I was talking with his mom about this, and I actually have to sit down with him in the next couple of days. We were just talking about this earlier today, and explain what I'm going through. He's old enough to understand it. He's a really smart kid, but like, why isn't dad here? Or when dad is here, why is he just like,
Mm.
because the next 5 weeks, my bucket's empty, right? We talk about drawing from an empty bucket. Like, I'm not, I can't remember who I had this conversation with the other day. No, it was his mom. It was my son's mom. And um, she's seen me go through competitions before back in Pittsburgh, but we're not married anymore, but we're super close because, we have a son. So she doesn't have to interact with me on a daily basis. So having not seen me in this phase for a while, and I told her, I said, I'm not in a good mood. I'm not in a bad mood. I just am. My affect is very flat. So don't misinterpret it. I'm not angry. Like, I'm just trying to get through the day. And it's really like the cost, as I've gotten older, the cost has become more, because there's more things in my life. I have more stuff. I've got the gym, I've got members, I've got my clients. And not everybody trains and approaches bodybuilding competitions the way that I do. It is a hobby, right? As an amateur, it's a hobby. Um, but I treat it as though it's a job. And when you get so far into it, and that's your sole focus, there's no balance. So you drop a lot of things, and this part is terrifying this time around because I've got so many other responsibilities that are growing that I'm having to neglect over the next month. Um, and then when you come back off from the show and you've had a few meals and now you're drinking some more water and you're back to normal, you kind of have to pick up the pieces a little bit. And that's part of the reason why, I was talking about making this my last,
Yeah,
um,
makes
the
sense.
last dance, so to speak, because the cost is getting really high.
There's a trade off in everything that we do, and especially in the area of professional sports. I like to look at health from a perspective of survival of the fittest. Now, for my customers, patients that are fighting cancer, their survival diet is going to be very cleansing and very detoxifying, but you're not going to win a cage match on that diet. it's a different diet. I like to look at it from survival of the fittest. And I understand what you're saying, that, you're not carrying any fat. You can't even, it hurts to walk. A survival of the fittest, you're going to need some fat for some sustaining energy.
Correct.
So I'm hearing you that it's not the healthiest sport. At the same time, there's trade-offs that work in a good way for you, because you have to master your diet. You have to not cheat. And when you learn to live without cheating and to be that dedicated, it crosses over into other areas of your life. Do you find that to be the case?
Absolutely. I use a lot of the concepts that are integral to bodybuilding on a day-to-day basis. We'll talk about diet. And I eat, and this is what I preach to all of my clients that I work with, all of the athletes that I work with. When we build their diets, we build it around whole food. We build it around as much nutrient-dense food as we can. I remember not that long ago, a gentleman that I've known for a few years through the powerlifting community, he reached out to me and he wanted to hire me as a coach. And the first thing I do when I bring on a new client or a new athlete is I just kind of take an inventory of what they're already doing. And I had him write down his diet. I said, don't change a thing. Just send me what you're eating now. And what he sent me was, there was 4 meals in his day, and only one of them was real food.
Mm.
The other ones were, protein shakes and protein bars and things like that. And I said, whoa,
Oh,
this. I was like, this is easy. This is a super easy fix. We're gonna just. And the thing was, for him, we were able to do a couple things. We got him eating more food, and it was real food. And the amazing thing was, guess what happened with his body?
Oh,
It liked it.
sure.
So it's those concepts, and even though especially the very end of a bodybuilding diet, and this was just last Friday. I send check-in photos to my coach that I work with twice a week now, and last Friday, his response to me was, "All right, we're pulling carbs." So up until that point, I was eating upwards of 250 to 260 grams of carbohydrate a day. My calories were close to 3,000 calories a day.
With a third of it being carbohydrates.
Right. And people would look at me like, what, really? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Now, at this point, the carbs are gone. So obviously that's the unhealthy part. We're just trying to strip off the last of the body fat. But up until that point, my diet was really well rounded. When you eat healthy food, when you eat good whole food, and you've got fruit in there, you've just got real food.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have cravings for crap food.
Yeah.
I love cheeseburgers. I love bourbon. I love food. But I haven't had a drink in, I think, 2 months, maybe 3 months. I haven't had a cheat meal. I can't tell you when. I don't crave it.
Right.
And
I'm with you on that.
And the reason I'm confident that's there is this year, more than ever, my diet, even before I started my contest prep, my diet was, I would say 90% was just real food, whole food, fresh food. As much as I joke about not liking veggies, vegetables and fruit, and the highest quality meat that I can get. And this is what I preach to my clients and athletes is, if you can put the best quality, it's like having a V8, I used to have a Dodge Challenger, a big old Hemi V8 in it. And you had to put the expensive gas in, right? Because that's what it was designed to run on. And the way I approach it with myself and with the clients and athletes that I work with is, you've got a V8. We've got to give it the best fuel possible. And when you do that, your body will respond. You will get healthier. You will feel better. You will move better. You will have less inflammation. I joke about this all the time. My tagline, so to speak, is, it's not the science of rockets.
Yeah. Yeah. My son, is he driving a Challenger or a Charger? I don't know. My 22-year-old with the something that has the RT after it, which I guess is the racing technology. He used to take it to West Palm Beach and the drag strips before they closed it. And he used to love doing donuts and stuff like that. He made a video. Don't try this at home, anyone. He made a video out in front of my office here and doing donuts around a Christmas tree while my other son, dressed like Santa Claus, was hanging the lights on the tree out the window. Absolutely nuts.
That sounds like a fun video, though.
It was something to it was neat. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's the problem
And
with
eventually,
those cars definitely make you do stupid stuff.
because you can, you have to be able to control yourself, I guess. And I remember teaching him how to drive and saying, okay, and I taught him some things I probably shouldn't have, but I would point everything out like, when we go around this corner, look, notice there's no bumps, there's no speed bumps, there's no curbs. If something goes wrong, there's room for something to go wrong.
Right.
And I know that he thinks like that before doing any stunts. He's been all right. He's been safe. People, anyone listening, don't try this at home. You're ashamed of your podcast host, Dr. Michael Haley, now teaching his kids how to drive recklessly. But they have a good time and they're enjoying life. There's trade-offs. There's trades we
There's a
make.
trade-off with everything, right?
Yeah, in that one, so far, the trade-off has been buying car parts and replacing things.
And they're expensive.
Mostly
for that car.
tires. Mostly tires. He'd go through.
Yeah, those tires are not cheap.
But good times. Well, as we're talking about these things, I'm wondering when being in shape became important to you. And I'm going to go first on this one because I remember I moved from Ohio to Florida and kind of popped in 8th grade, as a new person in the school. And I was just a magnet for the school bully. And I won't ever forget the one time I stood up to him, which to me was more of a matter of survival because the kid was 2 years older than me. He got held back a couple of years, so he was bigger than everyone. And I remember there was no one around, and he went to kind of throw a kick at me, and I got lucky, and I kind of caught his leg and kicked him in the back of his leg and then ran as fast as I can. I was gone. But the interesting thing, he never stood up to me. He never bullied me again. But he moved on to the next kid that popped in mid-year, and he started bullying that kid. And I made an immediate decision. I'm going to stand up for that kid. And he could probably take both of us, but I don't think he knows it, kind of thing. So I realized at least there's two of us, and this other kid was definitely not a fighter. I was not a fighter. But I decided, Mike, you got to get in shape. And I started going to the gym, and I wanted to get bigger and stronger and be a man.
You enjoying the show thus far? One of the many health secrets that we have covered on the show is all around aloe vera, specifically drinking raw aloe vera. Our aloe vera has helped our customers effectively heal their gut, increase their intestine health, lower inflammation in the body, eliminate and/or decrease acid reflux, have glowing skin and hair, and so much more. Now, as a frequent member of our audience, you will be exposed to exclusive specials and coupon codes for the awesome products manufactured by Haley Nutrition. That's right, for simply being awesome and tuning in, you can get a mini discount to help you optimize and better your health. To see how we can help and support you on your health journey, tune into the episodes and listen for coupon codes that you can use at www.haleynutrition.com before you make your orders of raw aloe vera. Once again, it's www.haleynutrition.com. Now, back to the show.
What made you interested in bodybuilding and powerlifting?
Well, we got to go way back. When I was in high school and into college, I was actually a rower. So at the time, I weighed about 140, 145 pounds. Was not a big kid. I'm 5'6". So I went into that earlier part of my life as an endurance athlete. That's how I ended up getting into racing a bike, because it came pretty logically. You know, I got into racing a bike, into running. And when I moved to Pittsburgh after graduate school, so it's interesting. I was recording a podcast earlier this week with someone else, and the question was, you know, how did you get into training, into fitness, and to, you know, bodybuilding and owning a gym? And I was like, this isn't what I wanted to do. I didn't have aspirations as a kid or as a young adult of like, this is what I want to do with my life. It just happened that when I was out of graduate school, I actually went to school to be a teacher. I have a master's degree in special education. And I didn't want to teach. I got done with it and realized, like, well, I don't really want to do this. So I needed a job. Now, I had trained in college, so I had some experience. So when I moved to Pittsburgh in 2008, I got my first job in a gym as a trainer. I had no real idea what I was doing, you know, because I had only trained in college. You know, I trained people at the school, so they weren't really that serious. And I was there for not very long. I think I lived in Pittsburgh that stint for a little less than a year, and I ended up moving back home. I grew up 2 hours north of Pittsburgh in Erie, Pennsylvania. Moved back home, got on my feet, moved back to Pittsburgh, and I was working in a different gym now. And I met a lot of great trainers. One of my coworkers was a bodybuilder. I worked out with him quite a bit. Now, I was still racing my bike at the time, not as much at that point, but it was still a pretty big part of what I did. And, you know, I was teaching spinning classes and doing all that jazz. And I was introduced to a guy in the gym named Matt. Interestingly enough, with Matt, he's a good friend of mine. He was my first bodybuilding coach. And for whatever reason, we haven't had contact with each other for the last 2-3 years. And I just reached out to him yesterday morning. I sent him a text. I said, hey, I don't know what's going on. Even if I don't hear back from you, I hope you're doing well, kind of deal. And we reconnected just yesterday. So I don't think anything happens by accident. But so Matt was a bodybuilder at the gym, and he was, I mean, we call him Big Matt. That's when you see him, even now, and I think he's in his early 50s now. I'm 42. Yeah, he's either in his late 40s or early 50s. I don't remember, but he's still over 300 pounds. He's enormous. So that was my first introduction to bodybuilding.
Enormous in a good way, you mean?
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
he's just, if anybody that's listening to this or watching this has any memory of bodybuilders from the 90s and early 2000s, there's a bodybuilder by the name of Chris Cormier, and he's long since retired. Matt sent me a picture this morning. Now, Chris Cormier was one of the best bodybuilders of that generation. Matt makes him look small.
Wow.
Now, he doesn't compete anymore. He has a supplement company based out of Pittsburgh, and great dude all around. But he's really, you know, who introduced me to bodybuilding. And it was one of those things where bodybuilding is the antithesis of what I was used to with rowing. Rowing is the ultimate in a team sport. Bodybuilding, on the other hand, is a very deeply individual sport. And I talk about having a support team and things like that. But at the end of the day, you're the one that has to be on stage, no one else. And it was just one of those, you know, for me, every sport that I've ever competed in, and I look back at all of the sporting events and beyond sports, a lot of things in my life can fall under the same umbrella here. There wasn't a lot of moments where I gave 100% to something. You know, when I was rowing in college, I know I can look back and go, you know, I had some ability. I didn't give it 100%. Same thing with cycling. I was pretty good, but I never went all in. When it came to bodybuilding, bodybuilding was the sport for me where, for whatever reason, I was like, I'm going to push the limit. I'm going to give it everything I can give. And I think part of it, especially this year, is, you know, again, not to burn a bridge, because you never know. But if this is the last time I do this, I don't want to look back and go, what if I would have gone 5% harder? what if I would have been a little bit more diligent with my diet or my cardio or like, so
Right,
it's
right,
one of
right.
those, for whatever reason, bodybuilding was that thing for me that I enjoy it. It's fun. And I always said this, I'll do it so long as it's fun. Um, and it was, for me to be able to challenge myself on that level, I wasn't able to do it and it just so happened to be, I think it's one of those right place, right time things where I had a training partner and a guy that I worked with at the gym that was competing in bodybuilding. So I trained with him. I had no intentions of being a bodybuilder at the time. I just wanted someone to work out with. And then, he introduced me to Matt. Matt kind of took me under his wing a little bit and showed me the ropes. And he coached me for quite a few years and my first few shows. And it's just to me, it's a fascinating sport. But it's also, it's an interesting, to me, it's a very interesting juxtaposition, right? Because not only is it a fascinating sport, but at the same time, it's like, health-wise, it can be very detrimental. Whereas like a sport like rowing or hockey, like the health risks versus the benefit, it's a little bit more balanced. But yeah,
I wonder if you ever thought about this though. And I read a book by Arnold Schwarzenegger, probably in the 70s. And he said something like, if you want to have big arms, you have to have a big chest. But if you want a big chest, you have to have big legs. And that made sense to me when I was in medical school in the early 90s. Because as I started reading about hormones, it makes sense that the larger muscle groups create the most stress on the body, driving the hormones for the whole body. And I wonder if you really thought about that and made the connection that cycling and rowing really drove the growth of your body, preparing it for bodybuilding.
I have thought about that, and I'm very thankful for that because even now at 42 and competing, I will be competing against guys that are half my age. And one of the things that happens as any athlete gets older, but when it comes to bodybuilding specifically, the first body part that tends to atrophy is the legs. And for me, I've been fortunate because of my background in both rowing and cycling. And one of my favorite facets of cycling was track cycling. So single speed, fixed gear, like your legs are the brakes, right? There's no brakes on the bike. So if you've ever watched track cycling in the Olympics,
Yeah.
they look like bodybuilders on bikes.
Yeah.
And it's definitely been a huge factor. And my legs are one of the elements that always have stood out. And I'm very fortunate in that because I don't struggle to develop my legs, whereas some people have such a hard time. Because yes, it's largely genetic, but I've been using my legs in sporting events most of my life. So it's
Yeah.
definitely played a huge factor for sure.
But that goes into other parts of your body too. Like, I like to look at some, even the women sprinters in the Olympics, the sprinters specifically. Not only do they have big legs, but they have strong shoulders, even the women. And I believe it's because those bursts, those maximum intensity bursts coming from the legs, creating the most stress. And the testosterone doesn't know, oh, just go to the legs to repair that. It goes everywhere.
Right.
And the whole body benefits.
I mean, there's definitely, we'll look at your son's car as an example, right? So you take a powerful engine, and I used to joke about my car this way. I said, there's way more horsepower than tire. The thing about it is like when you have a big engine, you need other systems to support that big engine, right? So you have a sprinter that has the power to generate that top end speed, but you need the rest of your body to account for that, to help create the speed and support the speed. I think it's a very natural, you're right. Like as you're developing as an athlete, whether it's a sprinter or a swimmer or a basketball player or a bodybuilder, it's, you can't spot treat where hormones affect muscle growth and development, like it's going to go where it's needed the most.
Yeah, yeah. On that subject, some people might need a little help when it comes to the hormones. What do you recommend, and what are the signs that they might need some help? And, where should they go to be tested? And what's your experience with that?
I love this. I love this part of the conversation. It's my favorite part of being a coach at this point. When I was 20, it wouldn't have mattered the way it matters now. One of the first questions I had in anybody that comes through my coaching program, I coach specifically, I work with men over the age of 35. And I actually don't think I have anybody that's under 40 at this point. So everybody's over 40. Obviously, as we get older, our hormone levels change. They drop. I describe it as programmed obsolescence, right? We're just older. It happens. And there's a lot of different signs and symptoms. And people, I think for a really long time, it's like, oh, I'm getting older. So yeah, I'm tired and storing a little extra body fat. And I'm really lethargic and I don't really have the energy that I used to. And like my libido is not what it used to be. And all of those things, I think, were just normalized. And so one of the first things I ask any new client that comes in, this is before they're even a client. If I'm just having a conversation with someone, it's, when's the last time you got your blood work done? And surprisingly enough, most men, I can't speak for women because I don't work with them, but I imagine it's similar. Most men say, I don't remember.
Yeah.
A couple years ago. So
I haven't had blood drawn in probably 20 or 30 years.
There we go. And it's one of those things where we wait till something is a huge problem to try to address these variables. When very often it's something that can be fixed quite simply early on before it's a bigger problem later. So being proactive about it, or as opposed to reactionary with it. So the best thing to do, and the thing with, we'll use testosterone as an example, and HRT, hormone replacement therapy, or TRT. There's a reference range when you get your blood work done. For any hormone, anything that we're checking in our blood, there is a reference range, the normal range of something, right? Vitamin D has a reference range. So we'll use testosterone as an example here. It's kind of what we're talking about. I believe the reference range here in the United States, this part is crucial because that number is different in other countries. So the normal reference range for testosterone is 300 to, I believe it's 300 to 800 nanograms per deciliter. So if you go right now and get your blood work done and your testosterone comes back at 305 nanograms per deciliter, you're in the normal range. Now, you could go to your doctor and say, Doc, I'm feeling sluggish. My libido's just not there anymore. I'm storing some extra body fat. I don't feel good. Can we do TRT? Quite often, a regular doctor like that is going to go, well, you're in the normal range. You're fine. Now, I always recommend that, when I talk with these guys, I say, find someone who specializes in optimizing hormones. Because while 305 is in the normal range, that is not optimal for you. If you're presenting symptoms of low testosterone, that 305 might be low. When you were 20, your natural testosterone level might have been 1100. You don't quite know that. So it's really important to work with a physician that understands and listens to your symptoms enough. I cannot stress this enough. I've been working with the same physician here in Charleston since I moved here. And when you go to your doctor and say, I feel like this, how can we fix it? And that doctor is going to do everything under the sun to try to optimize what's going on in your body to make you feel better. And go, how are you feeling? And then we'll retest those numbers in a few months and make sure we're in the right spot. Because anytime we manipulate a hormone, when you manipulate one thing over here, it's going to affect something over here. So we got to make sure that we're controlling. It's like if we're adding in testosterone exogenously, We're going to have to monitor your estrogen as well. We're going to have to take a look at your hematocrit, your hemoglobin, and we're going to have to monitor what's happening with your blood to make sure that ultimately you're healthy. Because if you don't monitor these things, like, you're playing with fire. So you could do nothing at all. And I think the reason I love talking about this stuff is because it's not taboo anymore, right? It's not, guys aren't just going and doing testosterone just to do testosterone. It's, I feel like crap, so I'm going to go and I want to look and feel like I'm 22. I got kids, I got a job, I got a career. I want to, or maybe this is the best one. Your kids are grown and they're out of the house, and you and your wife have time to yourselves that you haven't had since you were in your 20s, and you want to do what 20-year-old kids do, but you don't have the energy to do it.
Yeah.
So there's really, when you look at this from a fitness perspective, if someone comes to me and they want to lose some body fat, they want to build some muscle, it's not always as simple as fix your diet and train really hard. Because if your hormones aren't where they need to be, I can't fix that. There's nothing I can do that's going to fix your hormones. There's no, and this is where I kind of get on my soapbox about the supplement industry. There's so much BS when it comes to supplements of like, oh, this is a testosterone booster. It's all crap.
I did have success with one when I was in college way back. And I didn't realize that now that same thing is used for libido. But true story, there was a health food store down the street, and they were selling Yohimbe bark. And it looked like it came right off the tree. I'd buy a
The
bag
actual
of
bark.
Yes. And, I figure, I don't know, just I'm making a smoothie, might as well throw some in. And, you'd be picking the splinters out of your teeth after drinking your smoothie. But I got big and strong fast. It was crazy. I had friends that were taking testosterone at the time, and I was taking Yohimbe bark. And somehow it worked. Now, fast forward years later, I wonder what Yohimbe bark will do now. Give me a headache. But it wasn't the bark. I couldn't find the bark. It's something made in capsules, and wasn't the same. It wasn't the same experience.
No.
But at the time, it was crazy, and I had no idea what I was doing. I don't know how much I'm supposed to take. I'm going to just throw a couple spoons.
A couple handfuls of bark into your smoothie.
Yeah, and the texture was horrible. It was, it was chewing wood. But it was pretty cool, the results. Anyway, I like how you use the word optimize hormones. Because, the 305, if that's normal, but that's not optimal. And here's something I see, too. I'm a chiropractor. And there's people that are slow metabolism, packing on pounds. Their knees aren't working anymore. And their body is breaking down. And it's probably because their hormones have tanked. And it's probably affecting their relationship. See, the argument, the chiropractor in me would say, no, we're against drugs. Everything has a trade. But the logic would say, yeah, but the weight is killing them. And it's leading to cardiovascular disease, knee replacements, and all kinds of other problems. So if you make a T-chart, I think it's the Benjamin Franklin T-chart, and you put your pros on one side and the cons on the other, You're probably going to have more pros than cons.
Right.
Yeah.
100%. I think it's one of those, whenever you're looking at something like that, and someone's coming to you presenting these symptoms, I'll use the coach that I work with right now as a reference, because we talk about this quite often. When you make whether it's as a physician, as a coach, as a mentor or whatever, when you make a suggestion, if you're a doctor, if you make a prescription, you're weighing the benefits versus the drawbacks. Is the benefit of this medicine, does it outweigh the drawback? And you have to look at all of it, right? You have to look at every single pro and every single con. This is what I tell people all the time is, I can give you the answers. but you need to understand why. You have to do some research. Ask the
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
And it's not as simple as going to a doctor and saying, the doctor says, take this medication. A good physician, a good chiropractor, right? I'll use my chiropractor as an example. He doesn't just tell me what to do. He tells me why he's telling me what to do and how it's going to help. So I can then make an educated decision of, do I want to follow through with his advice or not? And I think any care provider, they should kind of put those options out of like, here's what your choices are. We can add this in, and here's why this will help. Here's some drawbacks. But I think, if you do this, your quality of life is going to go up. You're going to move better. Your hormones are going to be in a better spots, and you're going to start losing some of that body fat. You're going to feel better. Yeah.
As a thank you for tuning into the Dr. Haley Show podcast, I have a special coupon code that can be used throughout the month of August 2025. Get 10% off your purchase at HaleyNutrition.com. The coupon code is August 10. That's AUGUST10. And as usual, you can even use this coupon with on sale and already discounted bundled items. Enjoy the rest of the podcast. Yeah, the crazy person in me, I'm 58 now, so I feel some energy changes, but I feel like I can still fight through them. I haven't committed to making any changes by, adding hormones or anything like that. But I kind of, before going that route, if I ever do, I do want to get tested, and I want to see if I can make crazy changes and affect hormone levels physiologically. And if I can't, well, then I have to consider other options. I feel like probably like a lot of guys that could be listening to this right now. Have you ever seen the show The Incredibles?
No, I haven't.
All right. You got to watch it with your 8-year-old. It's a cartoon for kids, but Mr. Incredible, the superhero, he's a big badass, getting things done, saving people, saving the world, strong as anyone. And this thing happens to where the government kind of shuts down all the superheroes and they can't use their superpowers anymore. So he essentially retires from superhero duty and becomes an insurance salesman. And he gets fat and out of shape and just can't do what he has to do anymore. He's not a man anymore. He got weak. But something bad happens and we need the superheroes. We need them now. And he goes through this, getting back in shape thing. And before you know it, he's Mr. Incredible again. But it took some time. I'm wondering how many of your clients are like that, where they really were fit and they just let it go. They come back to you. And what do some of those successes look like?
That's such a great question. And, honestly, most of the clients that I've worked with, and I market very specifically to people who have either had some version of the ideal outcome. They've looked and felt a certain way at some point, or they were close to it. So they have a concept in their minds of what the end result can be. And I think, one of you brought an interesting point up, or one of the things that you said, it really, it hit me pretty hard. And it's a very common theme among all of the guys that I work with is that superhero thing. They want to be superheroes to their kids.
Yeah.
I've said this for a long time. Like, I want my kids to look at me like I'm a superhero. Like, that's my dad, right? That's a driving force for a lot of these guys. Is like, sure, there's a personal side of it of like, yeah, I want to look good and feel good. I want to look good with my shirt off and, go to the pool. And that's all well and good. That's great for selling, coaching, right? I'll be honest with you. And some of my marketing is like, hey, you want to look good with your shirt off at the pool? And, I'll put a shirtless pic with me at the beach or the pool, whatever. It works, right? It gets clicks. But when it
Mine are
comes
going to
down,
require a little Photoshop.
but it's moving the needle, and everybody takes a little bit different time, and everybody's end result looks a little bit
Yeah.
different. But when you feel better, not just because you're looking better, but you're moving better, you're feeling better, you have more energy. Your kids aren't running circles around you; you're running circles around them. They remember that, and it's like, yeah, your dad's a super. Like, I think my dad. I think back when I was a kid, um, he would work a 12-hour shift and come home and work more.
Yeah.
He never got tired. Like,
Right.
how he did it. And he was in his 50s at the time. And it was one of those things of like, yeah, he's a superhero. And I think that's the common thread with all the guys that I work with. I think everybody I work with has kids. And that's a good selling point for me too, is like, hey, you got kids, right? You're setting an example for your kids. And that's really, that one kind of drives it home a little bit, but for sure.
But what first happens when you first have kids, it kind of changes your life in a different way. You open up your wallet and you count your money kind of thing. You check your bank accounts and you start thinking, my goodness, I got to get these finances right. And you end up working harder, sacrificing your physical fitness. But then you want to start doing things with the kids again and you're realizing I'm not in shape anymore.
It's the greatest quality that I think men bring to the table, fathers bring to the table. Again, this can also, this goes with females as well, but I'm not a female and I don't particularly work with females. So I speak on my expertise. I try to stay in my lane a little bit. One of the greatest qualities that men and fathers have is they are willing to sacrifice everything for themselves for everyone else, whether it's their business, their family, their kids. They put everybody else first. And that is such an admirable quality. And I think we need that as a culture. But at the end of the day,
And that was that word I was waiting for, but
you you open this entire podcast up by talking about drawing from an empty bucket. And we all have a bucket. And eventually that bucket develops a hole. And the hole in my field and how I present it to the clients that I work with, the hole is fixable by putting time into yourself. If you carve out time, and maybe it's only 45 minutes a day, that's fine, 4 days a week. And you can work on yourself, what you're going to bring to the table because you're not going to stop making those sacrifices for everyone else. That's just not in your DNA. You won't do it. So you're going to turn yourself inside out. And I'll use one of my clients. He posted something last night. He got to the gym at 10:30 last night. After working a full day, he had to go to his son's baseball thing for a couple hours. He had something else to do for one of his other kids. And then he went to the gym.
Yeah, it's hard to do at that time.
It was one of those things when you want it bad enough, because he knows when he shows up for himself, he's going to be able to show up for everybody else better. And that's a really hard balance to strike, because we're going to separate this from, we were talking about bodybuilding for a bit, right? That's completely self-centered and selfish, and that's a whole different thing. But when it comes to your own fitness and taking care of yourself and being better as a husband and as a father, as a business owner, whatever it might be, if you don't make some time for yourself every day, that hole in the bucket is going to get bigger. And you're going to keep trying to draw from that bucket, and you're running out quicker. So it's one of those things, if you can make the time for it now, a reasonable amount, or you're going to try to do it later, and it's going to take a hell of a lot more.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. When it comes to physical fitness, I like to remind people that there's many aspects of it, and there's many ways to train. I'm a firm believer in moving some weight in strength training, but I'm also a firm believer that you need to be flexible. So you should do some flexibility training. And you want to have, good balance and coordination. So maybe some agility training or some participation in sports or activities such as pickleball or whatever that keeps you moving and balanced. There, if you need to lose weight, there's fat burning exercise. That's very different. And there's cardiovascular exercises. And I do always want to encourage people when we're talking about these things to don't get tunnel vision, but remember these various aspects. And that's only physical health. Now you got the mental health to deal with as
Right.
well. So don't get tunnel vision as we're talking about the gym.
Well, there was one, this is a few years back. I had a client of mine, and he's a pretty, he's a Domino's pizza franchisee. So he's got tons of Domino's franchises. And he had a team building weekend in Las Vegas. So he rented a big house and he brought his whole management team. And there's people from all over the country that came to it, right? And he flew me in to speak to this group of people. And, I was talking about training and fitness and movement and everything that you were just talking about. And there was a woman there who was extremely obese. And because I always ask them, if you have a question, ask a question. There's no, when you were in school and the teacher said, ask the question because someone else probably has the question. It's one of those things. Like and there's no question that you can't ask me. And there was a woman that, again, she was extraordinarily overweight and she raised her hand very, almost like she was embarrassed to ask a question. And her question, I don't remember verbatim what her question was, but it was like, how do I get started? Like, I know I need to move. And I said, walk to your mailbox. Because she had said that she can't walk to her mailbox. And I was getting choked up at the time, right? I deal with some pretty, phenomenal athletes and clients.
Yeah.
So here's a woman who can't walk to her mailbox. And I broke it down. I said, tomorrow when you go home, take a step. Just start moving. If it's 10 steps and you have to sit down, it's 10 steps and you have to sit down. And then the next day you do 11. And I was actually, like, as I was talking to her, I was in tears, right? I'm in front of this group of people I don't know. And just so, like, it hit me so hard because I think a lot of times people look at someone like me, the way that I look, the way that I dress, like it's just super simple and I'm just out of touch with people who are the exact other end of the spectrum. It's like, no, just start moving. You don't have to go and lift the weights that I lift or eat the diet that I eat. It could be as simple as if you can't walk 10 steps, you take the 10 steps and you take a break and then you take another step the next day and you just keep doing more. Pretty soon you're walking to the mailbox and pretty soon after that, you're walking around the block and guess what? You're going to start feeling better and that momentum is just going to build. And that was one of those, it's such I don't know what it feels like to be at that point. I can empathize with people that have never taken care of their bodies or are extremely overweight. And it's just so hard to get started because it's easier to just sit there and do nothing. It is. It's always going to be easier. But the problem's only going to get worse.
It's only going to get worse, and it's going to get harder and harder to do something about it.
The best thing you can do is take the first step. Yeah. You don't have to have all the answers, right? Yeah. You just have to take the step. And then once you take one, you take the next one. And then you start solving problems.
Yeah. Let me ask you just a couple quick questions. Creatine, yes or no?
Absolutely. It is the most researched supplement on the planet. And it's, again, whenever it comes to supplements, you want to buy the supplement that is not the cheapest. You want to buy the one that's the best and the purest and the highest quality you can possibly get. because you're putting it in your body. That's my caveat to any supplementation. But creatine is one of those, whether you're male or female, whether you're a high level athlete or not, like, again, it is the most heavily researched supplement on the planet. And there's no reason that anyone shouldn't use it.
I'm in agreement, and I wouldn't overdose on it. Not that you're gonna overdose. You're not gonna want to have scoops of creatine, multiple scoops a day. 5, maybe 10 grams if you're a bigger
Yep.
person.
I think it's
You
between
will
5 and
notice
10
a
grams. Yep.
difference. You will notice a difference.
Yeah.
What other supplements?
Well, I actually have them sitting on my desk, ironically enough. Obviously, if you are taking supplements, and this is more on the, if we're going to go back into the bodybuilding end of things, or anytime you're taking oral medications, right? You're putting stress on your internal organs. So you should probably take care of your liver and your kidneys. So I'm a firm believer in kidney support, liver support. Or if you like to drink a lot, you should probably take care of your liver. The supplement I use most often, though, because I don't eat a lot of vegetables, and it doesn't have to be AG1. I just found AG1 and I like it. I don't get any money from any supplement company. I just
That
recommend.
AG1 is a powdered vegetable, isn't it? Yeah.
Yep. So I just drink that in the morning. It gets me, because especially as I'm deeper and deeper in a contest prep, it's a pretty restrictive diet. So I know I'm missing some micronutrients. So that's my way of getting it in. I don't get any money or kickbacks from any supplement company. It's just stuff that I've started to use over the years. That's the most common one that I use.
I've always told people the one supplement that I recommend everyone have, if you only going to have one thing, a powdered vegetable or a powdered fruit and vegetable or a powdered fruits if you don't like vegetables. We actually make one that's the two together. It's powdered fruits and vegetables. And if you don't like my brand, find one you like, because they are all pretty good for you.
Yeah.
And they tend to be very natural, mostly organic. If they're sweetened, it's usually with stevia, which is actually a healthy, nutritious plant food. So yeah, I'm a big fan of them. What else? What have we left out besides? Well, you might as well tell people, how do they get in touch with you if they want a consultation, or if they want to be trained by you? How does that work?
Well, you can find me on Instagram at Vanguard Barbell _coaching.
Awesome. And are you taking clients locally or nationwide? How does that work?
Most of I would say 98% of my clients are remote. So I think the farthest away I've ever had someone was up in Seattle, I think. Maybe that was Canada. Pretty far. I've trained people all over the place. So definitely different time zones. So the way that my coaching program works is everything is done through my app. So all of our communication, meal planning, all of their training, every exercise that I'm going to have them do, there's already a video of me doing it. And actually, right after I get off the podcast here with you, I've got check-in calls scheduled with so the only thing I make mandatory for my clients is that we have to check in at least once a week. So we jump on the phone, we cover everything that's going on. They've got questions, we make sure we cover them and make sure they're, I love data. So, what I love about my app is, every piece of data that we can track, we track. So I can show you in real time what we're doing is working. Conversely, if we need to make some changes, I have the data right in front of me to go, okay, well, this isn't working the way I want it to work and the way that you want it to work. So let's change these variables and then go from there. So if anybody has any questions about it, they're more than welcome to reach out. I don't hard sell anybody. I'm at the point of my career where I'm really picky about the clients that I work with. So I have, whenever I sit down on a call with a potential client, I have a legal pad in front of me. And one of the things written down on that pad is the word fit with a question mark. Because I want to make sure, for one, that I'm a good fit for you, because I might not be. you know, there was a time in my career where I had to train everybody that came in front of me, even if I didn't like them. Um, so it's one of those things where when you're hiring a coach, it doesn't have to be me. When you're looking at hiring a coach, there's got to be a good fit, because you know, the number one thing, especially with remote coaching and the way that a lot of things are done these days, you've got to like that person because you're going to communicate with them a lot. And if you're really good at that, you have a great system of communication, you can accomplish a ton. But if you're not looking forward to that check-in call, or you're not really feeling that particular coach, it's never going to work. It's just going to be lighting money on fire.
I like that check-in call. That puts an element of accountability. So now I better do the things that you told me to do. I like that.
Because I'm gonna ask you if you did them.
This is good. Hey, Andrew, I want to thank you for joining me today. I think it's been a great podcast. For anyone watching and didn't catch the Instagram account or anything that was referenced, I'll make sure it's put in the show notes so you have a simple link you can click to get in touch with Andrew. Thank you, and until next time.
Thank you very much.
I hope you enjoyed that episode today on The Dr. Haley Show. Make sure to hit subscribe on whichever platform you are listening to this. If this episode made you think of someone, go ahead, take a screenshot, and share this exact episode with them. You can catch the show notes for this episode on www.drhaley.com. If you want to geek out with Dr. Michael Haley on other radical health topics, be sure to check out his YouTube channel, where he posts exclusive video content. All the details are at www.drhaley.com, and we can't wait to hang out with you on the next episode.